Hey, my name's Harlan Mason. I buried my wife alone while my son was out popping bottles with his girlfriend. Folks whispered I'd lost everything, but they didn't know the half of it. When the will was read, that boy froze like time itself stopped. You ever watch your own blood turn against you and still feel God watching? It was hot that day, South Carolina heat, the kind that don't just sit on your skin, but press against your bones like some kind of punishment. The church was packed, but it felt empty in the places that mattered. The lilies near her casket smelled too sweet, like they were trying to cover up something ugly. And Lord, the hymns. Soft gospel floating through the air, like her voice whispering from the other side. I stood up front, next to her. My wife, my Ruth. She looked peaceful, too peaceful, and all I could think about was that damn empty seat beside me. I didn't need to turn around. I knew. My son wasn't there. The whispers started even before the final hymn. Ain't that his boy? Thought he'd fly down from Atlanta. Another voice. Maybe traffic got him. Or maybe he ain't coming. Grief ain't what kills you. It's remembering who ain't grieving with you. I didn't cry. I ain't never been one to break down in front of folks. I just looked straight ahead and let the silence speak for me. But inside, I was splitting wide open. Devin, my only boy, my own blood, and he ain't show up to bury his mama. After the ceremony, I was shaking hands, nodding at condolences like it was business. Then Dolores, an old friend from back when Ruth used to sing in the choir, walked up all slow, holding her phone like it was about to bite her. "Harlan," she said, almost whispering, "I ain't mean no harm, but I thought you should know. You're Devin." He posted something. She turned her phone toward me. There he was. On a beach somewhere, sunglasses, drink in hand, music blasting behind him, laughing like nothing in the world could touch him. My chest didn't tighten. It went hollow. All I said was, "That's still my boy." The crowd behind her started mumbling. You know the kind, sympathy twisted with judgment. "Poor Ruth. Raised that boy so good," someone said. "She deserved better." I didn't argue, didn't explain. I just folded my hands and held tight to the white handkerchief Ruth always kept in her Bible. She'd embroidered it herself. That handkerchief was the only soft thing left in my life. On the ride home, I didn't play no music. Just the hum of the tires and the sound of my own breath. Steady, but heavy. Charleston rolled by slow oak trees, hanging low like they knew sadness had passed beneath them. I drove past the corner where me and Ruth used to walk on Sundays after church. She'd take off her shoes halfway home, saying, "The Lord made the earth and I'm gonna feel it." I'd laugh and hold her heels like I was carrying treasure. I saw Devin in my mind, back when he was a boy chasing pigeons in the church parking lot, hollering, "Daddy, look." That boy, he used to look at me like I was the whole world. When did that stop? "Did I raise him too soft?" I whispered. "Or did I love him too much to make him see me?" The radio clicked on by accident, old Mahalia Jackson tune. That voice, it cracked something in me. I didn't cry, just stared ahead and pulled down my shades. Can't let the world see a man unravel. Back home, the house felt smaller without her. Half lit, half lived in. Still smelled like her vanilla and cedar. I didn't turn on the lights. Just let the shadows stretch across the floor. Photos on the wall stared back at me, Ruth's smile frozen in every frame. Some had Devin in them. Some didn't. One picture, his face was turned away. I wondered if that was a sign or just bad timing. Then I saw her Bible on the dining table, right where she left it. Open. To Corinthians. A small note slipped between the pages. "Forgive, even when it hurts." I read it 3 times. My hands shook, not from age, but from the war inside. "Lord," I said, "you asking too much of me today." I poured a drink, Sat by the window. Watched the sky go from gold to nothing. It was late when the phone buzzed, unknown number. I ignored it. Then a voicemail dropped. Harlan, this is Miss Price down the street. I know it's late, but your son's in a video going round. Looks like he's at a rooftop bar. I stared at the screen. My hands didn't move. Then I opened the clip. There he was again. Devin. Laughing loud. Arms around some young woman. Champagne bottles poppin'. Caption read, "Life goes on." No tears came. Just a low, That's all I had. My wife buried in silence. My son dancing in noise. I sat in the dark a while. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. Then my phone lit up again. It was a message. From Ruth's number. It read, "He didn't come, did he? Come to the cemetery, Harlan. Now." My breath caught. I read it twice, then a third time. I stood up, pocketed her handkerchief, and said, "All right then, if this ain't real, I'll find out myself." The cemetery looked different at midnight. Not just darker, older, quieter, in a way that felt personal. Mist slipped between the headstones, like it had nowhere else to be. One street lamp flickered above the gate, casting long shadows that moved like they were breathing. I pulled my coat tighter around me. The same handkerchief I held at her funeral stayed pressed to my chest, soaked now with memory, not sweat. My steps crunched over the gravel, loud in the stillness. It felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. When I reached her grave, I stopped cold. Her name had just been carved fresh, sharp letters cut into polished stone. Ruth Ann Mason, it read, followed by 2 dates I wasn't ready to accept. I stood over her like I used to stand in the kitchen, waiting for her to finish humming that same old Sam Cooke tune. "You finally at rest now, baby," I whispered. But I ain't. I remembered the last time we were here. Together. It was for a neighbor's funeral. Years back. She held my hand then, squeezed it when the preacher said ashes to ashes. Now I was standing alone, saying it to her stone. Ruth used to say she wanted to be laid down with peace, not pity. No crying, no drama, Harlan. Just lay me next to a soft breeze and a good tree. I tried. Lord knows I did. But the drama found its way in anyway. Something tugged at my eye. Behind the headstone, nestled in the damp dirt, a corner of white. I bent down slow, joints stiff, and pulled out a small envelope. Damp at the edges. No name outside. But I knew that handwriting like I knew my own breath. I opened it, careful not to tear. The paper inside was folded twice, stained faint at the corners. Just a few lines. "If you're reading this, Harlan, then something has gone wrong. You were never supposed to be alone at my funeral." My fingers trembled. I blinked, trying to see straight in the flicker of the lamp behind me. The next part was harder to read, deliberately vague. Like she didn't want someone else understanding. Check what they changed. Look at the last page of the binder. Someone didn't want Devin there. I sat back on the bench nearby, letter in hand. For a long moment, I didn't breathe. Grief came back, fresh and mean. This wasn't just mourning anymore. This was betrayal, wrapped in a whisper. All this time, I thought Devin was just being selfish. But what if he wasn't? What if someone kept him away on purpose? I closed my eyes and let the silence drape over me. Then, without meaning to, my memory jumped 3 days back. Me and Devin talking over the phone. I remember asking if he'd made his flight. "Yeah, Dad," he said, voice flat. "There was a mix-up. Something with the time. I'm trying. But he didn't sound like himself. He sounded cornered, like someone had fed him a version of the truth and told him not to ask questions." Then there was the funeral director, Miss Carla. She was cold with me. more business than comfort. I chalked it up to her being overworked. But now, I wondered, was something being covered? The pieces weren't adding up. And that letter, that was Ruth's voice, in its rawest form. She knew something. She didn't want to leave me blind. I looked back at her grave and felt the heat rise behind my eyes. Lord, I muttered, what good is silence when it helps them lie? All my life I tried to be the man who stayed calm, who took hits with grace, who let things roll off his back. But now, I was tired. Not of grieving, of guessing. If I was strong enough to bury her, I whispered, I'm strong enough to dig out the truth. I stood, brushing dirt off my knees, tucked the letter into my coat pocket. That's when I heard it. You're not supposed to be here tonight, Mr. Mason. I turned slow. The voice was calm, almost kind. A woman stepped from behind a tall grave marker. Nurse's uniform. Brown skin. Short hair. Looked like she hadn't slept in a week. I narrowed my eyes. Do I know you? She stepped closer, stopping just at the edge of light. Your wife trusted me, but they didn't want you to know everything. Before I could say another word, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the dark like a ghost that didn't want to be followed. When I stepped through my front door, the silence hit me harder than the drive home. I was still wearing the suit from the reading. I peeled off my tie slowly, letting it drop across the banister. The house felt different, empty, but weighted with something I couldn't name. In the hallway I passed the photo wall. Ruth in her youth, her smile full of promise. That picture used to reassure me. Tonight, it reminded me how much they've tried to rewrite her story. My gaze drifted to the floor near my door. An envelope lay there, edges bent, no return address. I didn't open it. Instead, I placed it on the desk in my study, turned away, and poured myself a cup of tea. The kettle's hiss echoed in the quiet. I held the mug, feeling its warmth in my hands. I thought of Ruth's voice, her steady faith. I wondered how she'd have faced this moment. Then came the knock. Sharp, deliberate. I nearly set the mug down too fast. When I opened the door, Devon stood there. No apology, no hesitation, just that practiced calm. He stepped in without a word, surveying the room, acting like nothing had changed. We both knew it had. Dad, he said, we need to clear the air. His tone was polite, but the words carried weight. I didn't interrupt. I watched him search for footing. Look, I know today was hard, he began. But Mom's last wishes, they were hers, and she trusted me to carry them out. You're too old school sometimes. You don't see how these things move now. I waited. Let him speak it out. After a pause, I said quietly, I don't recall your name on her first will. His face flickered, but he masked it. He leaned forward, voice low. People change. She changed. I told Cassie and we should handle things clean, fast. It would prevent delays at her burial. Every word he dropped felt like acid in my chest. Handled things clean, as if she were an asset, a file. He froze. The realization of what he'd said caught in his throat. I didn't mean it that way. I know what I heard, I replied softly. You used that term because you meant it. He turned away, jaw tight. You don't understand, Dad. I stepped closer. Maybe, but I know this. If there's one thing you got from me, it's how to pretend. The difference is, I pretended to protect. You pretend to take. He looked back at me, anger in his eyes now. You built the world I was trying to change. I shook my head. You're forgetting whose hands built it. He walked toward the door. I watched him go, the door clicking shut behind him. The house felt quiet again. I returned to the desk, picked up the envelope. I slid it open. Inside, a prepaid phone. No note, just one voicemail, I hit play. Zara's voice came through soft laughter, conspiratorial tone. If he tries anything, just remind him about that loan, with his name on it. Then, Cassian's low chuckle. My heart sank. They weren't improvising betrayal. They'd timed it, scripted it, used my debts like chains. I pulled Ruth's old diary from the drawer. The edges frayed, cover worn. I flipped to the bookmarked page, her writing steady. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I pressed the page flat. Then, on a clean sheet, I wrote, "War doesn't always start with gunfire. Sometimes it starts with inheritance." I dialed my old lawyer, a voice I hadn't used in years. When he answered, I spoke quietly, deliberately. "We need to meet tomorrow." Off the record. I hung up, sat there in the dim light, the edges of the room dark and familiar. Then came another knock. Soft, hesitant. I opened it. Odessa stood on the porch, hands trembling, eyes wild with fear and urgency. "You don't know half of what they're planning," she whispered. By the time sunlight stretched across my living room floor, Odessa was pacing. Her eyes darted to the windows, like someone who knew too much and trusted too little. "They're going after the house, Harlan," she said, voice low like the walls were listening. "Zara and Devin, they're using a fake trust." I wasn't supposed to see it, but Zara accidentally forwarded me the email instead of Cassian. There's a full document attached, dates, stamps, legalese and all. I didn't speak right away, just watched her, the fear clinging to her like smoke. Then I stood, went to my drawer, and pulled out the burner phone, pressed play. Her eyes widened as Zara's laugh filled the room. "I heard it. I know what they're doing," I said. Odessa sank into the couch. Her shoulders slumped like they gave up on holding hope. "It's not just about property, Harlan. They want to ruin you." "I know," I replied. "You're not safe either. Stay in the guest room. Bolt it from the inside." She nodded. "They're gonna come for me, too." "They already are." I didn't sleep that night. I was out early the next morning, the weight of betrayal sitting heavy on my chest. The legal aid clinic sat between a laundromat and a liquor store, same place it had always been. The bell above the door rang as I stepped in. There he was, Reginald Pierce. Still had that sharp glint in his eye, though age had softened his posture. "Well, look who the storm blew in," he chuckled. "Didn't expect you to come asking for favors, Mason." I slid the forged trust across his desk. "Look it over," I said. "Tell me I'm not losing my mind." He scanned the paper, flipping it once, then twice, shook his head. "Sloppy work. They used the wrong statute, outdated since 2009. Fonts don't even match. These fools think courtrooms can't smell fear." I stayed quiet. "But that's not the point," he said. "They don't care about real. They care about believable. They want to paint you as the bitter widower who can't accept his wife's will. It's not about facts. It's about story." I exhaled hard. "You in?" "If you can prove there's a real will, I'll help. But off the books, Harlan, this ain't something I want to be seen co-signing without fireproof evidence." "I got it," I said. "Somewhere." That night I sat alone in my office, fingers brushing along the spine of June's journal. I'd read it too many times already, or so I thought. One page I'd missed, tucked near the back. The handwriting was a little more frantic. "I don't think Harlan sees it," she wrote. "He still wants to believe Devin is just misguided. But I see the way Zara operates. She's manipulating him. Slowly, quietly, and he can't see it." I froze. All those conversations I brushed off. All those nights I told her she was overthinking. I failed you, June, I said, voice barely more than breath. I stayed in that chair until my legs went numb. Then my phone lit up. Cassian's name. Notification from a blog I hadn't seen in years, known for tearing down black churches, black families, and anyone with a pulpit. Local pastor hid money from late wife, now fighting her will. There it was. Headline bold. Picture of me, smiling, from a church picnic 5 years ago. They timed this to crush what was left of my dignity. My phone buzzed again. And again. Friends, asking questions. Some silent, some not. One message just read, "You? Really?" Even June's sister called. "Harlan," she said, barely above a whisper, "tell me this isn't true." I didn't have words, just the weight of silence. I stared in the mirror, bloodshot eyes, wrinkles that hadn't been there last month. My hands trembling. I reached up, took off my collar. "If they want to see me guilty," I muttered, "then I won't waste energy playing innocent." I climbed the attic stairs slow, like each step carried 10 pounds of regret. It was dark up there, dusty, but I knew what I was looking for. June's lockbox. I opened it. Inside, a notarized will. Her real one. Signed, witnessed, stamped. Not the copy Cassian had waved around. Not the forgery. I held it in my hands for a long time. Then, placed it in my safe. "They want war?" I whispered. "Let's bring courtrooms. Let's bring cameras. Let's bring consequences. Because this fight, it wasn't just about what June left. It was about the respect they thought I was too tired to defend." Next morning, I was halfway through my coffee when the doorbell rang. A man in a black suit stood on my porch. Thin briefcase. No smile. "Mr. Mason?" "Yes." He handed me a thick envelope. "From the office of Zara Whitfield. You've been served." I nodded, signed, and closed the door without a word. Official eviction notice. I set it down on the kitchen table, beside my cold cup. I couldn't sleep. Not after signing that eviction notice. Not after seeing my name dragged through the dirt like I was some scam artist, and not a man grieving his wife. The house felt different now. Quieter, but not peaceful. That kind of silence where you can hear things you shouldn't like. The weight of betrayal settling into the walls. I turned on my side, but my thoughts wouldn't let me rest. June used to hum before falling asleep. It wasn't loud, just a soft rhythm I took for granted. Now all I had was the creak of the ceiling fan, and that old handkerchief of hers I kept by the bed. I reached for it, clenched it in my fist like it could bring her back, or at least steady me. Then I heard its soft steps in the hallway. Not Odessa's. Lighter. Cautious. This house, the one I built brick by brick, didn't feel like mine anymore. But I knew one thing. I was done waiting for someone else to write my ending. The phone rang just past midnight. Cyrus. "Hey man," he whispered. "I just left Devon's dinner party. You won't believe what I heard." My stomach tensed. "Say it." "They had a few folks over. You know, from the old neighborhood." Devon stood up and gave this speech. Called you dead weight. Said you were old news. Told folks you never adjusted to modern times, and that you just talked to hear yourself talk. I closed my eyes. It was one thing to suspect your son thought less of you, it was another to hear it confirmed. Cyrus added, "He's trying to rewrite who you are, Harlan. Like you were just a shadow in his life. Not the one who gave it shape." My throat burned. "Did you record it?" "I did. I'll send it." I thanked him and hung up. Sitting there in the dark, I didn't feel sadness. Not even shock. Just hollow. It was like something cracked wide open inside me, and there was no use pretending I didn't hear it. I left my room and walked into the hallway. That's when I saw Norika, my granddaughter, standing by the coat rack. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "you forget your jacket?" She nodded. As I handed it to her, she paused, her voice soft as rain. "Mama used to say you talk too much, like nobody listens." That hit harder than any headline. Not because it was cruel, but because it wasn't her speaking. It was her mother's poison dripping through a child's lips. I kneeled, looked her in the eyes. "That's not you talking, baby. That's someone else trying to make you forget who I've always been to you." She blinked, confused, hurt, maybe not fully understanding but feeling something shift. I held her hand. "Love don't disappear just because somebody wants it to. Remember that." Morning came slow, gray light bleeding through the blinds. Cyrus showed up carrying 2 coffees and a folder full of evidence. We cleared the kitchen table. "This is everything," he said. "The fake trust, the blog post, the voicemail, and the recording." I called Reginald, put him on speaker. "They went public, Reg," I said. "I figured they would," he replied. "Time to play smart. Leak your own story. Let the church hear your voice before they forget it." Cyrus nodded. "We drop the real will. Frame it as a redemption arc. People eat that up." "And the legal angle?" I asked. Reginald's voice sharpened. "File civil. Make noise. Force them to answer under oath. But be ready. They'll hit back." I took the rend. Statement Cyrus drafted. Read every word. Then signed. "This isn't about revenge," I said. "It's about honor. They made this ugly. I'll make it loud." We were cleaning up when I stepped out onto the porch, needing air. The world was just starting to wake up, birds chirping, sky cracked open with pink. That's when Cyrus handed me a letter. "This was left on your desk. No name." I unfolded it slowly. Inside was a photo. Blurry, but clear enough. Devin and Zara, standing in a courthouse parking lot, talking to a third person. Face half hidden, but familiar. I stared at it long, too long. "There's someone else," I muttered. "Another piece on the board." I tucked the photo into my jacket, locked the door behind me, and stepped down the porch. I walked up the courthouse steps in my suit, cane in hand, steady stride. This place was familiar. The smell of polished floors, the hush of hushed voices, the weight of decades of verdicts in these walls. I passed portraits of judges who'd long since retired. I remembered a time I sat in a courtroom fighting over my father's land, making my stand with nothing but my name and integrity. I nodded to the security guard, a man I'd counseled years ago, and he returned a quiet nod. The murmurs began immediately. "That's Harlan Mason, suing his own kin." I squared my shoulders. Let them whisper. I came here to win, not to appease. Before the hearing began, Cyrus slipped into the pew beside me, eyes wide. He hissed, "Check your email." I took out my phone as the judge's clerk called us to order. On the screen, a video clip. Zara slipping an envelope into the hand of a clerk in a side hallway. A timestamp. From a maintenance worker's camera. Reginald's name flashed in my mind. He'd warned me evidence was everything. I forwarded the clip without hesitation. A cold certainty washed over me. We'd agreed. Don't drop it now. Let them dig their own grave. Defense, through anticipation. Let this trap close on them. When Devin took the stand, he turned to the jury and began. "My father always made Mom feel small. He never respected her wishes." His voice was calm, rehearsed. He painted me as the jealous old man guarding a shrinking kingdom. My grip tightened on the bench edge. "He thinks this is performance. He's wrong." He looked directly at me. I met him without flinching. I remembered him as a boy, laughing in the backyard, running to me with pride in his eyes. You performing, son, I muttered under my breath. This ain't a talent show. I held his gaze. He paused. To the surprise of many, Odessa was called. She rose, shaky but steady. I feared for my safety, she said. Zara threatened me if I spoke. She said she'd ruin me legally if I didn't cooperate. A murmur spread. The courtroom cooled. Even a juror shifted forward. Cassian objected, but the judge allowed it in evidence. Her words under oath hung in the air. My heart stuttered not for me, but for her courage. When my turn came, I took a seat on the witness stand. I spoke plainly. This ain't about assets. It's about legacy. It's about character. My wife didn't deserve to become a weapon in a lie. I pointed to the original will hidden in my safe, the signature she'd placed after 30 years of marriage. I spoke of my years defending the church, protecting our home. My voice didn't waver. You can't rewrite truth just because it doesn't suit you, but you live with it, like I had to. As the court adjourned for lunch, Reginald slid me a note. Judge's clerk just requested early recess. Same ones are bribed. The timing was no coincidence. I exhaled into the cool air outside. Hand steady, voice calm. It's time. The first step back through my front door hit different this time. Not like someone crashing into their own memories, but like a man who finally walked back into what was always his. The house felt still, like it had exhaled. No voices arguing, no lawyers calling, just the hum of an old fridge and the porch swing creaking faint in the wind. I stood in the living room for a while. The same photo of June on the shelf, same hand-knitted blanket over the recliner. I sat out on the porch where we used to sit together every Sunday after service. I could still hear her voice saying, "Just make sure they don't break you, Harlan." Neighbors started coming by again, some with cornbread, others with pound cake. Miss Loretta even brought her harmonica and hummed Precious Lord soft under her breath. Nobody said much, just sat, shared space, left peace behind. Then the news broke. That hallway camera clip went public. Zara was arrested before noon. The bribery hit the front page of every local outlet. Her nonprofit board stepped down. Sponsors dropped out. Folks at church said they were reevaluating her influence. I didn't celebrate. How could I? She's still my daughter. I just drove down to the county jail and stood outside the glass, watching her on the other side. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't force it. I just thought, may the truth set her free. If not now, then someday. Late one evening, just as I was settling down with a lukewarm cup of tea, Devin pulled into the driveway. No call. No warning. Just him, standing on the porch like he didn't know if I'd open the door. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." Just handed me a letter. I found this in Mom's Bible after the hearing. I opened it right there. June's handwriting. Faded blue ink. Still graceful. Don't let them make you feel erased, Harlan. I never did. I stared at it for a long time. Devin said quietly, "I didn't know she still believed in you like that." I nodded. "Now you do." He didn't ask to come inside, just stood there while I sat back down. I didn't move either. But something settled between us. Something that might grow, if time's kind. A week later, I hosted a fish fry. Nothing big, just enough folks to fill the lawn and bring back the sound of living. Kids running barefoot. Neighbors laughing over lemonade and fried catfish. Devin didn't join, but he came. Stood under the pecan tree most of the evening, watching. Not ready yet, but he stayed. That was enough. Odessa came too, brought homemade slaw. She patted my shoulder and whispered, "Told you they'd remember who you are." I smiled. Took some time, but truth always shows up, even if it's late. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat alone on the porch, June's shawl over my shoulders. No music, no talking. just the kind of quiet that feels earned. I thought about everything we'd lost, the lies, the fights, the years of being doubted. But I was still here, still standing. And I thought about every black father who ever had to watch his children believe lies before they saw the truth, who had to sit silent while the world told a version of him he didn't recognize. Not every fight is about winning, I whispered in my mind to June. Some fights are just about being seen. I finally felt peace, a strange kind, not loud, not proud, just still. That night I sat down to write a letter, not for court, not for show, for Devon, to be opened. I wrote on the envelope, when you become a father, inside, I forgive you, not because you asked, but because I refused to carry you like a weight. And one more line, soft, but sharp enough to stay. And if the time comes when you sit where I sat, may you remember what it cost to still be standing. The church was quiet when I walked in, not empty, just still. Like the air was holding its breath. They'd asked me to say a few words at the memorial for Delphine. Just a small service at the old church where we were married, where she used to sing in the choir. I didn't prepare a speech, didn't need to. I walked slow down the aisle, past neighbors, cousins, folks who used to sit at our table when Delphine cooked too much on purpose. I nodded at them, took my place behind the pulpit. My hand rested on the worn edge of the wood. Then I saw him, Darian, standing in the back, hands in his pockets. I hadn't seen him since the fire. He slipped into a pew, didn't speak. I kept going. I didn't come here to preach, I began. Just to remember a woman who loved deeper than she let on, and who fought harder than most ever knew. That's when it happened. Darian stood up, loud, sharp. Tell them how you made her choose. Between you and us, tell them the truth, old man. The air went dead silent. A few folks gasped. One woman clutched her chest. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. You want the truth? I asked. Then sit down and listen. He didn't move, but I turned to the room. I brought something with me, I said, not to defend myself, but because Delphine asked me to. I reached into my coat and pulled out the flash drive. Slipped it into the church laptop. The projector flickered, and then there she was, Delphine. The sanctuary lit up with her image. Sitting on our porch, the light in her eyes soft but sure. If you're watching this, she said, then I've gone home. You could have heard a pin drop. She looked straight at the lens. Darian, I know you're angry, but you're angry at the wrong person. He didn't speak, but his jaw clenched. I made mistakes, she said. I covered for too long, excused too much. I let you believe the world owed you something. That's on me. The room felt like it stopped breathing. But your father? She went on. He never left. He never stopped loving us, even when we made it hard. She paused, wiped a tear from her cheek. I enabled your pride, but he held the line. That's what real love does. A murmur swept through the crowd. If you want to honor me, she said finally, honor the truth. The screen went black. Nobody moved. I stepped down. Darian was still standing in the aisle, frozen. Tears didn't fall, but they were close. 3 church elders walked toward him. I braced myself. But they didn't scold. They embraced him, arms wide, eyes wet. That was the first time I saw my son look like a little boy again. I didn't approach him, didn't have to. As I stepped outside, I found a folded note under my wiper blade. It read, "Thank you for not shaming me." I put it in my Bible, right next to her photo. That night, I sat on the porch, tea in hand. The yard was lit soft by dusk. My grandkids were chasing lightning bugs, their laughter rising like music. I opened her journal again. The page I'd bookmarked read, "A man's peace is not in his silence, but in his courage to speak when it matters." I closed the book, took a long breath. "No more silence," I said. My heart wasn't heavy anymore, just full. I watched the kids run across the lawn, their joy untouched by what came before them. That was the gift Delphine left me. Not just her voice, but this peace. No headlines, no applause, just restoration. I leaned back in my chair, looked up at the darkening sky. "You can rest now, Delphine," I whispered. "We both can." And as the wind moved through the trees, I swear I could hear her laugh again.